The Shanghai Major is about to kick off, and of course, with the Major comes the addition of the stickers, as well as the Pickems challenge. So I want to quickly talk about the rest of the update, and then we'll go ahead and do a deep dive in Pickems as to who I think is going to make the next stage of the Major, and we'll get to that right after a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by SkinsMonkey. Now, if you're not familiar with SkinsMonkey, it is a trade site where you can take some of the old skins that you have and trade them in and get something a little bit more clean and fresh. And this weekend, SkinsMonkey is hosting an event called Black Weekend, which is basically like Black Friday for the site. And for those of you guys that don't know, you already get a 35% deposit bonus if you want to trade, but for this weekend you can actually get up to a 45% deposit bonus depending on the day that you check out. There's never really been a better time to try out SkinsMonkey, so if you've ever been curious, this could be the perfect weekend to check it out. And if you do decide that you're interested, you can click the link in the description where you'll also get a bonus because I sent you over. So big thank you to SkinsMonkey for sponsoring this video, and let's hop back into it. So before we do the deep dive into Pickems, I want to talk about one more thing that was added in today's update, which of course was the ability to rent skins out of any case in the game. So if you have a Bravo case or any of the expensive rare cases from years and years ago in CSGO, you can actually rent them now. Now, I don't think this is going to change anything about the market, but I did think that it was cool, and I tested it out today on stream, and I rented a Huntsman case, and it did not go very well. Guys, we f***ed up because now we're going to get a Battle Scarred Rolkin. Oh! Guys, that's the end of the stream. So without further ado, let's talk about the Pickems for this year. Now, it will be using the new system that we saw in Copenhagen, which means that you have to get your 3-0 picks correct. In previous majors, you could game the system a little bit by having a team that you didn't actually think was going to go 3-0. You could put them in that category, and if they got it, then that was cool, but it didn't matter because you could have like your favorite, like let's say Furia, we knew was going to go 3-0, but we didn't know maybe something bad could happen. We could put them in this category and we'd still get the point regardless, but you cannot do that now, and so you have to actually get the 3-0 and then the 3-1, 3-2 picks. They have to be correct. So with that being said, let's talk about what I think is going to happen. Now, if you didn't know, I actually watched every single RMR game on my stream, and if you want to watch the Major with me, you can. I'll be streaming it here on this channel on YouTube as well as Twitch, so you can look out for that if you're curious. But let's talk about it. I think we have a couple of clear favorites to advance to the next stage, that being of course Furia, Liquid. I think Complexity is also a favorite, and probably that's where I would draw the line for, I would say, guaranteed teams to make it through. Now, looking at the first matches that these teams have, Liquid is going to be playing versus Cloud9, which is almost a 50-50 match for Liquid, I would say. So I want to put them in the 3-0 category pretty much outright, but because they could lose the initial best of one, and it is the best of one for all of these first matches, by the way, to Cloud9, I don't really feel comfortable putting them in the 3-0 because I feel like they could easily get upset in a best of one. I mean, think about what happened in the Americas RMR. They actually lost a map to Wildcard, who also did qualify for the Major, but a lot of you guys probably aren't even familiar with who Wildcard is since they're just a local NA team. So I think it's probably safest to just put Liquid in this category. They could go 3-0, and if it happens, then I'll get burned for it, but I do believe that that is a pretty safe pick. So let's talk about the next team that I think is a pretty safe bet to make it through to the next stage, which is, of course, Complexity. Now, in the Americas RMR, they didn't look terrible, but they did get 2-0'd by MIBR in the qualifier match, but they still made it through the next game with no issues. Now, they don't have the hardest draw in the world. Their first game is, of course, against FlyQuest, and FlyQuest is a completely different topic, by the way. They looked pretty rough in the Asian RMR, but I think that Complexity will probably win that first map, and they'll be set up to maybe even make the 3-0 run, and I actually kind of favor them to do so. But the problem is, of course, is that after they win their initial best of one, then they have to win another one, and then a best of 3, and I do think that Complexity is a team that is capable of doing it, but because they haven't looked so good in the months leading up to it, it could be a little bit of a questionable pick, but I still do feel pretty confident in putting Complexity in the 3-0 category for now. I might change that by the time we get to the end of this Pickems, but that's what I want to do in the beginning here. Let's talk about another team that I think is probably going to make it through, which is Virtus Pro. Now, they only lost one map in the EU RMR, which was to Passion, but that was also in overtime, and they did look pretty decent when they were playing, albeit Virtus Pro is easily the most boring team that I've ever watched, but I think they're too solid to lose. I don't think that they'll go 3-0, but I do think that they should make it through to the next stage. Another team that will probably make it is Furia. Now, Furia's first match is against Gamer Legion, and Gamer Legion have been on a little bit of a win streak because they went 0-2, and then they ran it all the way back and had to win 4 best of 3s in a row to make the Major, and they look pretty good when they did it. And because their first best of one is against Furia, I think it could be a little bit of an upset potential for Gamer Legion, which means that I feel really comfortable putting Furia to go through in the 3-1 category. I think that the likelihood of them losing one best of one it's just too good for me to want to put them in the 3-0 category. Now, you might think that there's pretty much no team that's guaranteed to make 3-0 in this part of the major, and I would agree with you, but I do think that Complexity has a decent chance at it, so we'll put them there. Another team that I think could probably make it to the next stage is the Mongols. They looked really good. They made it through the Asian RMR with 0 issues, no complications at all. And their first match is against Rare Atom, which is a pretty favorable match for them. And then after that, they actually have a pretty good chance of making the run. They also will not have to worry about being jet lagged because they're closer to the major than all these other teams traveling from Europe and of course America and Brazil. So I think that they have a decent chance. They also, of course, will be playing all of these matches on stage, so they have the home crowd advantage. And I actually think that if they're going to make it to the next stage, they probably will make it through 3-0. I know that might be a little bit of a crazy pick, maybe a little bit of a slight bias, you might think, but they've looked pretty good in the months leading up to the major, including the RMR. They've given me no real reason to think that they won't make it through to the next stage, and I even think that it's going to be a 3-0 for them. That's what I want to put them, at least. I'm not sure. You could probably say, oh, but they could lose a best of one here or there, and you're probably right, but these pick'ems are all just kind of up to luck. You know, you got to see how the teams end up playing anyway. Now, this is when things get pretty difficult because the last 3 spots to advance, as well as the 0-3 picks, they're kind of just up in the air. Obviously, every team made it through the RMR, but some teams made it through more convincingly than others, so it's a little tough to pick an 0-3 pick here, but I do think that the first one I want to pick is Rare Atom. Their first draw is, of course, against the Mongols, like we mentioned, and I don't really think that they can win that game. At least I don't favor them. And after that, things will probably only get worse. They could draw a team like Cloud9 or Liquid in the second round because of their seeding, and then, you know, things just kind of spiral and they could be playing the 0-2 game. They're very likely to be playing the 0-2 game. Realistically, I think that Rare Atom is a team that's likely to go 0-3, and that's really where I'm going to leave it. So let's just drop them in over there. Next, of course, we have to talk about FlyQuest. They came through last spot. Their first game against Complexity, they're probably going to lose that one. And then, you know, like I said before, they're going to get thrown into that 0-1 bracket and probably draw a team that'll be close. I mean, they might play Passion, they might play Big or something like that. And then, again, you know, I don't favor them in that match. They could easily be playing the 0-2 game, maybe even against Rare Atom, right? So it's kind of hard to say. I really do want to put FlyQuest in 0-3, but there's another team that I think also is extremely likely to go 0-3, which is, of course, Imperial. I think Imperial is extremely likely to go 0-3 because they didn't really have the most convincing run at the Americas RMR. They came in, they didn't have to play the decider. They went 3-2, and their wins in the Americas RMR were against Kase, Crew, and Red Cannons. And their losses were to Pain and MIBR, which are, of course, both teams that made it through to the major as well. And those 3 teams that they beat, you probably aren't that familiar with them. Cold Zero is on Red Cannons, but other than that, you probably don't know any of the players on those teams. They did not look very convincing, and when they did lose to MIBR and to Pain, it was very one-sided. So I actually don't think that Imperial are going to win a match, and I do think that FlyQuest would probably beat them if they played them in the 0-2 match. Here's the other thing, just as an added bonus. I think that Imperial got very lucky that they did not have to play the decider in the Americas RMR, because if they played it against even M80 or Furia, whoever it may have been, I think they would have lost, and we could have had a completely different, result there. We could have had a different team at the major. So we have to figure out who's going to get these last 3 spots, and we'll take it from the top. Of course, Big should have already been in the elimination stage, but they kind of got robbed because Valve changed the rules. If you don't know, I'll leave a video in the top right. It's on my 3rd channel. You can go get an entire breakdown of what happened and why Big is in this stage. But either way, they're here, and I'm not sure if they'll make it through. They didn't look too bad when they were playing. Of course, they went 3-0, but they had to play Passion in their qualifying match, and, you know, Passion is an underdog team who looked very good, but if you're just listing off names of who you beat to get to this stage, you probably wouldn't, you know, like, you beat Sashi, you beat Heroic, and you beat Passion, right? And Passion also took a map off of you in that best of 3. So it's like, yeah, the win against Heroic is pretty legit, but is that one result enough for me to say, yeah, you should probably be making it through? I'm not sure. We'll check back in with them. Talk about Fnatic now. Here's the thing about Fnatic. I don't think that they look that good at all. They lost to FaZe in the best of 3, they lost to Navi, and they beat BetBoom, who made 2 roster changes right after they didn't qualify, and then they also qualified by beating Eclat in a really, really close game that really shouldn't have been close if you're a Fnatic. So I don't even think that they're likely to make it through to the next stage. So let's just leave them there. They're not going to make it. Which brings us to Pain. Now, Pain, of course, always going to be a good team to pick to go through. They have looked pretty good in the RMR as well. They did take a loss to Wildcard, but that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It was a best of 1 for them, and they always look good when they play internationally. The most recent results are close matches versus FaZe, Mouse, Eternal Fire, Virtus Pro. They always play good against international opponents, and I do think that they are probably likely to make it to the next stage. I'm going to put them there. I don't feel wrong doing that. I think that they should be fine. Next, of course, we've got Gamer Legion, who did go 4-2 in the A European RMR, but the problem is that the teams that they beat were BetBoom, Sinners, Falcons, and Unity, which were pretty strong teams in the RMR, but we're in the major now, and I don't really think that a couple of 3-map series is that convincing to say that you're going to go through if you play a team like Liquid or Furia or even the Mongols. I don't even know if you'd be able to beat them with results like that, but I'd love to be proven wrong about them, but I don't think that they're going to make it to the next stage. Then we have MIBR. Of course, MIBR did go 3-0 in the Americas RMR, but they didn't really have the hardest run in the world. They beat Complexity to qualify, which is a pretty legit result, but that was really all that they did, to be completely honest. And they haven't looked that fantastic coming from other events, but the RMR was a pretty legit run. They are a solid contender to make it, but I think that there's another team that should take the spot instead of them, which will be, of course, Cloud9. And they don't have a ton of results to go off of, but from the matches that they played against FaZe, I was pretty impressed, as well as the other matches that they won throughout their RMR. I think that they looked pretty good. Now, they haven't had the best results coming into this event, but I do think that in general, they looked a lot better than a team like Gamer Legion or even a team like MIBR from what we saw. And I think that they're a pretty good bet to make it to the next stage, especially if they win their opening best of 1 against Liquid. They'll be set up for success. And I always will favor a team like Cloud9. They're going to be scrappy. They're going to probably have to play a decider game, like the 2-2 game, to make it to the next stage. And you just have to favor them, especially if they're playing a team like Gamer Legion, maybe, who's making a run again. I feel like they'll probably beat them there. So that's where I want to lock in. We already talked about FlyQuest. I don't think they'll make it through, which brings us to Passion and Wildcard. Now, Wildcard, of course, my NA bias might be showing, but I think that they're going to turn some heads at this major. I think that their first matchup is actually pretty favorable for them. They play Fnatic. I already mentioned I didn't think that Fnatic looked that good at all, and I think that this is Wildcard's chance to prove something. Of course, they did take a win off of Liquid as well as Pain in the Americas RMR, and they qualified by beating 9Z as well. And 9Z are no slouches, even though they didn't make this major. They are still a really solid team. So Wildcard's run was really good, and whenever they play internationally, which not that often to be completely honest with you, but they don't look terrible when they do. And I do think that there's a world where Wildcard make it through to the next stage, but the problem is that I don't want to give them the spot because I think that there's a team who is more likely to make it as an underdog, which of course is Passion. Now, we have all been talking about Passion throughout this RMR run and this major because their run to get here was pretty tough. I mean, they had to play versus Virtus Pro in their opening match and they won it. They had to play versus Spirit and they won that one too. Then they had to play Big and then they also had to play Heroic, which they did lose those series, but to be completely honest with you, they didn't look terrible in those series. The maps that they won, very one-sided. And of course, they also eliminated Astralis to qualify to the major. I think if you just take all of the names of the teams that they played at face value, they look pretty legit. And then if you look at the CS that they were playing as well, they look very, very inspiring. Like, they are here to play this major. I'm very impressed by what I've seen from them, and I think that they're very likely to progress to the next stage. Now, I don't think that they'll make it through to like the playoffs or anything. I don't think they're making a crazy Cinderella run, but from what I've seen, I do believe that they should be able to make top 16. And yeah, I guess that's really where we're at. I'm going to lock these picks, and I guess I'll turn it to you guys now. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what your pickems are. If you disagree, which I'm sure a lot of you will, make sure you let me know. But just make sure to keep it respectful. These are just pickems. It's not that serious. If you think I'm wrong, then that's okay. Let's talk about it. I'll be posting pick'em videos for every stage throughout the major, but just as a heads up for everybody, I actually will not be at this PC for my next upload. I should be at I'm not really sure where I'm going to be, but I will be on a laptop. The setup will be a little bit different, but I will still be doing videos for you guys while I'm away. And don't forget, if you want to watch the major along with me, you can. I'll be streaming it here on this channel. We have perms to co-stream, so we will be making use of those. So hopefully I'll see you guys there, but if not, that's okay. Hope you enjoyed anyway.